Imagine a world not of ancient ruins or lost empires, but of an even deeper, more primal terror. Picture the sky, not as a symbol of freedom, but as a vast predatory canvas where shadows, miles wide, sweep across the sun-baked earth. We're talking 4.2 million years ago, a time history books barely touch, where humanity wasn't the apex predator, but a fragile whisper clinging to life. This isn't just a story about survival, it's about a desperate, brutal war fought daily against winged giants, the Teratorns. These aren't just birds, they are living engines of destruction. Their talons like grappling hooks, their beaks capable of rending flesh from bone in a single, horrifying swoop. Every sunrise is a gamble, every hunt a death-defying act, every night a fragile reprieve. What if our ancestors' greatest enemy wasn't the saber-tooth or the cave bear, but something far more ancient, far more terrifying, something that made simply existing an act of defiance? This is the story of Alara and Kale, and their tribe's impossible struggle to carve out a future beneath the shadow of wings that could eclipse the sun. The dry wind carried the scent of dust and distant danger. Alara, her muscles lean and wiry from endless treks, knelt by the sparse scrub, urging her tribe to move with silent haste. Every snapped twig was a potential beacon, every rustle of dry leaves a drumbeat announcing their presence. Their existence was a tightrope walk over an abyss, the constant hunger, a gnawing beast within, the sky an even greater terror above. The sun, a brutal eye, beat down on the small band of hominids, their eyes constantly flicking upwards, instinctively searching. Kale, ever vigilant, stood a little apart, his gaze sweeping the vast, unyielding horizon. His hand instinctively rested on the crudely sharpened stone axe at his side, a meager defiance against a world that dwarfed them. He saw it then. A flicker, a distant smudge against the searing blue, too high for an eagle, too swift for the cloud. A collective shiver ran through the small gathering. Children, barely weaned, clutched their mother's legs. The meager handful of berries and tough roots they'd managed to unearth suddenly seemed insignificant. This wasn't just a struggle for food. It was a desperate daily plea for invisibility. For in this Dawn Age dystopia, life was merely a pause between one shadow and the next, one horrifying swoop of talons capable of snatching a full-grown man as easily as a field mouse. The Teratorns were the true rulers, and humanity, for now, was simply prey. The sun, a fiery orange against the bruised purple of dawn, offered no comfort. It merely illuminated the carnage. A shadow, larger than a forest glade, had fallen without warning, its monstrous outline etched forever into the tribe's memory. The guttural shrieks of the Teratorn still echoed in the dry air, a terrifying counterpoint to the wails of the survivors. 3 young hunters, brave but outmatched, lay broken. But it was the still form of old Shauna, her wise eyes forever closed, her intricate bone carvings scattered around her, that truly crushed their spirit. The tribe huddled, a collective gasp of despair, their primal fear now a suffocating shroud. Alara knelt beside Shanna, her fingers tracing the elder's cold face, a silent scream tearing at her throat. Kale, his own face a mask of grief, gripped his crude spear until his knuckles whitened. The attack hadn't just claimed lives. It had stolen their hope, leaving behind only the bitter taste of helplessness. Yet, beneath the crushing weight of sorrow, a flicker of fierce resolve ignited in them both. They would not let Shanna's wisdom be lost. Driven by a desperate need for answers, or perhaps just a direction for their rage, They returned to the attack site. Amidst the disturbed earth and splintered branches, something gleamed, half-buried. Ilara scraped away the loose soil, revealing a smooth obsidian-like surface etched with symbols unlike any she had ever seen. Geometric, precise, and utterly alien, they pulsed with a faint internal light. Kale stared, his mind struggling to reconcile the ancient primal world he knew with these impossibly intricate markings. They hinted at a past far grander, far more terrifying than the simple battle for survival against winged titan. Compelled by the mysterious markings, intricate symbols Ilara had meticulously traced from ancient stones, patterns that seemed to beckon them deeper into the forgotten world. Ilara and Kale ventured beyond the shadowed canopy of their ancestral hunting grounds. The air grew still, heavy with an oppressive silence that spoke of ages untouched. Here, the earth itself was scarred, not by geological upheaval, but by something more deliberate, more sinister. Then they saw them. Skeletal ribs of colossal, obsidian-like structures piercing the desolate skyline, half buried in red dust. These were not natural formations. Their lines were too perfect, their angles too precise, their surfaces smooth and cold, impervious to the millennia that had eroded mountains. Remnants of an advanced, forgotten civilization, they stood as silent, decaying titans, monuments to a vanished age. Kale's grip tightened on his spear. Every primal instinct screamed danger, yet Ilara's gaze, captivated, drew them closer. Within a chamber of impossible geometry, untouched by scavengers or elements, Ilara's hand brushed against a section of crystalline wall. It pulsed faintly, then shimmered, projecting a mosaic of fleeting, intricate images directly into their minds. Geometric diagrams, biological schematics, growth sequences. And then, horrifyingly, the familiar, terrifying silhouettes of Teratorns. Not soaring free, but constrained, designed. The realization crashed upon them, colder than any glacial wind. Their winged tormentors, the living engines of destruction that cast mile-wide shadows of death, were not nature's predators. They were engineered. They were weapons. A forgotten species, now facing the monstrous legacy of another, undefined. The ancient data crystal pulsed with a sickly internal light, casting long, dancing shadows across Ilara and Kale's strained faces. Hours blurred into an eternity as they meticulously peeled back layers of forgotten code, each revelation tightening a knot of dread in their chests. The device, a relic from an incomprehensible past, began to project images, not of wild beasts, but of intricate schematics, biological blueprints overlaid with metallic circuitry. Then, the chilling truth materialized, an abomination so profound it stole their breath. The Teratorns, the winged titans that haunted their every waking moment, were not products of primordial evolution. They were manufactured, bioengineered weapons, crafted by a long-vanished civilization for a conflict beyond memory. A war that had ended not with victory, but with the architects of this terror consumed by their own creation. The giants of the sky were a dystopic legacy, designed to control, to subjugate, now running rampant, a perfect, self-replicating nightmare, unleashed upon an unsuspecting world. A new data stream appeared, a persistent, chilling coordinate, a source. The crystal labeled it with an accompanying visual, a sprawling, subterranean complex, dark and impossibly vast. It wasn't a nest, but a factory, a place where the bioengineered terror was perpetually created, a wound in the earth that bled Teratorns into the sky, ensuring their endless, brutal reign. Their fragile existence was not just a battle against predators. It was against a ghost war still being waged. The crushing weight of their dwindling numbers, the hollow echo of hungry bellies, etched a grim resolve onto Alara and Kale's faces. Survival, they knew with chilling certainty, was no longer about evasion. To truly live, to break free from the ceaseless terror, they had to strike at the heart of the beast. The whispers of a colossal breeding ground, hidden amidst jagged, inaccessible peaks, once a tale of horror, now became their impossible destination. They gathered their elite 10 souls, etched by claw and shadow, eyes mirroring the same grim understanding, each chosen for their speed, their silence, their unyielding will. No grand speeches were needed. The silent desperation of their tribe spoke volumes. Around a flickering fire, Kale etched crude maps into the dust, marking treacherous ravines and the towering silhouette of the Teratorn's eyrie. Alara, her gaze fixed on the imaginary path, recounted every fleeting detail she'd ever seen of the monstrous nesting sites. The sheer scale, the constant vigilance, the impenetrable fury of a mother Teratorn. The journey was a death sentence whispered in the wind. They were not just walking into danger, they were marching into a living engine of destruction, a place where the very air thrummed with predatory power. The odds were abyssal, a chasm wider than any gorge. Yet, as the planning concluded and the first stars pricked the ink-black sky, a strange, terrible hope ignited within them. It was a hope born of desperation, a defiance against a world that demanded their extinction. They would not merely survive. They would fight back. The journey was a gauntlet, each day a brutal testament to their will to survive. Twisted, skeletal forests gave way to jagged rock formations, then to the searing expanse of sun-baked plains. Every landscape a new challenge. Above, the sky remained a vast predatory canvas. Teratorn patrols were ceaseless, their immense shadows sweeping across the earth like death omens. Kale, ever watchful, navigated by instinct and the faint, almost forgotten paths of their ancestors, his gaze perpetually scanning for the telltale glint of their colossal wings. Their most potent, yet enigmatic, tool was the Lumen Shard, a salvaged piece of ancient technology, smooth and cold, pulsating with a faint internal hum. They understood little of its function, only that when its faint light touched certain invisible barriers, it created a momentary ripple, a distortion in the air that allowed them passage. It was their ghost key, bypassing the old one's forgotten defenses that still lingered in this desolated world. More than once, they used it to slip through shimmering energy fields, the screech of a passing Teratorn echoing perilously close, their escape agonizingly narrow. Finally, after days of relentless evasion and the silent dread of imminent discovery, the earth itself seemed to cleave open. Before them yawned a colossal chasm, carved not by nature, but by an ancient, brutal design. Below, a labyrinth of reinforced metal structures plunged into the darkness. The Teratorn breeding facility. It was a subterranean marvel, an industrial nightmare humming with unseen energy, a true dystopian engine of destruction, churning out the winged titans that had driven humanity to the brink. They had reached the heart of their nightmare. The metallic tang of ozone mixed with the acrid stench of guano, a sickening perfume within the gargantuan facility. Above them, a cacophony of shrieks echoed through cavernous chambers where glowing incubators pulsed with nascent life. The next generation of winged terror. Elara, her face grim, pointed her spear at a shimmering conduit embedded in the wall. "That's it," she rasped. "The power feed to the hatchery control nexus." But before Kale could move, the automated systems, dormant until now, roared to life. Mechanical arms, long since rusted into grotesque shapes, began to twitch, and emergency lights flared, bathing the chamber in a sickly red glow. A high-pitched, piercing hum vibrated through their bones, disorienting the team, and from the darkest recesses, a fresh swarm of juvenile Teratorns, barely fledged but vicious, dive-bombed them. Kale roared, swinging his obsidian axe, cleaving through the air as a young Teratorn shrieked past his ear. "One of their own, Finn," cried out as a mechanical arm, surprisingly agile, slammed into his leg, pinning him against the cold, unyielding wall. "Go! Disable it!" he yelled, his voice strained. Elara met his gaze, a silent promise passing between them. With newfound fury, Kale fought the feathered onslaught, buying precious moments. Elara, ignoring the desperate battle raging around her, scrambled towards the conduit, her mind racing, searching for the weakness in this alien tech that bred their nightmares. She plunged her reinforced spear into a visible seam, sparks erupting, the facility groaning in protest. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was an act of rebellion against a horror that defied nature itself. The sun, once an indifferent giant, now felt like a fragile beacon. The tribe's return journey to their ancestral lands was heavy with a silence, born not of exhaustion but profound change. The sky, though momentarily emptied of the colossal predators, remained a vast, intimidating presence. Elara and Kale walked amongst their people, their faces etched with the stark knowledge of the Teratorn's true genesis, a horrific echo of a past ambition that had nearly extinguished them all. The immediate relief was palpable, a fragile warmth against the biting chill of the unknown. Yet, it was a hollow victory. The breeding cycle was disrupted, not eradicated. The monstrous eggs might lie dormant, the fledglings scattered, but the threat lingered, a genetic memory woven into the very fabric of this scarred world. Rebuilding began. But it was a different kind of effort now. Every stockade reinforced, every scout party doubled, every shadow scrutinized. Their survival was no longer just about hunting and gathering. It was a continuous, evolving battle against a horror they now understood was man-made. They carried a new, somber wisdom, no longer mere prey, but reluctant guardians of a fragile future, forever watching the skies, forever burdened by the legacy of forgotten ambition.